Hello, brothers and sisters, and welcome to day 41 of the Chronological Read Through the Bible. Today's commentary covers chapters 29 through 31. Now, we're really just continuing from where I was yesterday in the elements of the tabernacle. So, remember, the people were to bring all of these gifts for the tabernacle to be built. And I know some would pause and say, well, no, wait, where did slaves get all of these articles? Where did they obtain this? Well, if you remember, as they were leaving Egypt, their neighbors, their Egyptian neighbors, were giving them all this stuff to take. Basically having this mindset of, if we're nice to the Hebrews, and if we give all this stuff just to get rid of them, to send them on their way, they won't come back and God will be happy with us. And that's at least a part of the picture that we get. So yesterday I talked about some of the articles of the furniture which we're going to look at again today. I want to give you that picture of you're approaching the tabernacle in the wilderness. You first have to go through the tribe of Judah, or at least close to the tribe of Judah. So just like Christ is from the tribe of Judah, the Messiah, the rod of Jesse, everyone would have to pass through him to get into the holy place, the Holy of Holies, to enter into the court of the tabernacle. So on the outside of the tabernacle, two things which are present, two articles that are present, is there's the altar itself, which is the sacrificial altar. There's really two altars, and I talked about the other one yesterday. We're going to look at it again today, but the one altar which is outside of the tabernacle was the altar which the animals would be sacrificed on or burned on, offering up a pleasant aroma, the scriptures say, to the Lord. It would really have been like being to the family barbecue. And then there was also the bronze basin, which also I talked about. This is where the people would cleanse themselves, or the priest would cleanse themselves during their ceremonial duties. Now, it's really this picture of they're not having to completely cleanse themselves. They've already been cleansed for their service, but it's this picture of washing their hands and preparing themselves for their duty, for their service before the Lord. I want you to think of the Passover Seder, the Passover meal which Jesus had with his disciples, and when he washed their feet. And then Peter said, Lord, you will not wash my feet. And Jesus said, well, then you basically you won't be able to participate. You have no part of me. And then he's like, well, wash my whole body. And Jesus said, no, your whole body doesn't need to be washed. It's just your feet. And I say this picture because that was really where the priests were at. They had been cleansed for their service, but because they lived in an unclean world, they were to cleanse themselves at this bronze basin. Well, where did they get the bronze? Well, we actually learned this a little later. The women, the Hebrew women, were told to bring their mirrors, which would have been highly polished. You know, it wouldn't have been what we know of as a mirror today, but highly polished metal so that they could see themselves in, to bring those, and that would be turned into this bronze basin, which was holding water. So in a sense, that which really created or appropriated vanity was to be destroyed. And I'm not speaking against mirrors. Don't go yanking mirrors out of your house or off your car. But it was a symbolic thing, really. And I believe it goes a little deeper. We're going to come to that passage later in Scripture, but I did want to point it out here because some of these are overlapping. And I know with the chronological read we normally should have that, but this is speaking of the beginning of these articles being made, and it's that really the blueprint of how each of the pieces of furniture for the tabernacle are to be produced. So before you can enter into the tabernacle, there must be a sacrifice. And then I mentioned that there's another altar which is in the tabernacle, and that's the altar of incense. And the altar of incense is the place of worship and the place of prayer. And the only way you get to that altar is by first the altar of sacrifice. So true worship and true prayer is going to come through the sacrifice of today, the Messiah, and his shed blood allows you to have entrance into the holy place. Not the Holy of Holies, but we do have entrance all the way to the Holy of Holies, to the very throne of God, which the ark symbolized. There's a procedure and a right way to approach the Lord. And you're not going to get in by some artificial means. And there is laid out a prescribed way of worship. There's a specific incense to be placed upon the altar of incense. It's not haphazard. And so our worship and our time of prayer for the Lord should not be haphazard. It should be done respectfully, with great reverence. As you enter into the tabernacle, off to the right would be the table of showbread. And I want you to remember that Jesus says in John chapter 6, he said that he was the bread of life. And then, as I also mentioned the other day in chapter 8, he said that he was the light of the world. So we have those two pictures, but then he is in this place of where Christ shed his blood for us on the cross, the altar outside of the tabernacle, and then today, really the inside of the tabernacle is a picture of heaven. And today, he is before the Father, which is the ark. The ark is right behind the altar of incense. He is before the Father, offering prayers on our behalf. So we have this picture as you go through, and it could be a whole lot more in depth than it is. But we're actually going to get to that the deeper we go into our daily reads of the Bible. Especially when we get to the book of Hebrews, it lays this out, and we see it again in Revelation. So we see this picture. I just want you to take note that, as I say, as we're passing through this, it's real easy to just be like, well, this is just telling how the furniture's made. But I want you to realize the importance of each part, and especially if you go back and read how specific God was on how the aromatics, or what was going to be placed upon the altar of incense being offered up to the Lord, how specific it was. And even the incense that or the perfumes that was to be basically sprayed around the tabernacle, and how the instruction even is they are not to be used for anything else, only that. And we must make sure that our worship of the Lord is pure and true and done in the way that He's prescribed it to be done. Well, these are amazing and always exciting to me, but I also know that to another you could just read this and it seems dull and like, when are we going to get past this furniture of the tabernacle? But I hope that if this is your first time reading through the Scriptures, I hope that you're able to learn a deeper appreciation for it the further we go into the Scripture. As I say, the tabernacle covers basically 50 chapters of the Bible. Not all at once we're going to go in and out, but you will see the importance of God's tabernacle. And it is a shadow of the good things to come, which ultimately is the blueprint of heaven, the blueprint of how we will worship before the Lord there. I do hope that you've had a good day, and till tomorrow, God bless.